This is a second part video to the one I called the Aristocratic Games, where I talked about the game of darts and the 3, 6, 9 elements that are sort of within the game of darts. And I'm going to continue this, and today I'm going to talk about, you get it, I'm going to talk about snooker for sure, but I'm going to also try and mix it in with golf. Hopefully I can summarize the two up together. So the game of golf, we'll put some details up on the board to make it easier. So the game of golf is played over 18 holes, and there is a front 9, and then you also get a back 9. I had a quick look on the internet to see about the origins and history of golf. Didn't get a huge amount of satisfactory information, but I mean, the modern game, as it's called, goes back to the 15th century and comes from Scotland, which is the famous golf course in Scotland called St Andrews. The old golf course there, which is considered to be the oldest modern day golf course that exists, it has a front 9 which has a par of 36 and a back 9 of a par of 36, and therefore a total par of the course, which is the amount of strokes par that one anticipates being able to go around the course in, how many times you need to hit the ball. So total of 72 times. So obviously here 3, 6, 9, you see it all there. Obviously today there's many golf courses that have got lots of different pars, and it's not necessarily going to be 36, 36 and 72, but that was kind of the base. That's the oldest golf course, and that was what they set up there. What else is there about golf? I know back in my golf playing days, when I had my golf bag, I'd always have, if you went and bought a set of golf clubs, again, I don't really know how it is today, but when you bought a set of golf clubs, you'd get 3 woods in your bag. You'd get a driver, which was your number 1 wood. You'd get 2 fairway woods. They're woods that you play from the fairway off the grass, and they would be the number 3 and the number 5 woods. So once again, 1 plus 3 plus 5 is 9. 135 is also a significant number in the powers of 9 teaching. 3 clubs, 1, 2, 3, 3 woods. You'd also get another set of 3 within the bag, which would be your sand wedge, your pitching wedge, and your putter. So that would be another set of 3. And then you'd think maybe to be really 3, 6, 9, we should just have 3 fairway irons to use. But a traditional bag would usually come with a 3 iron, a 5 iron, a 7 and a 9 as a real minimum basic set. Some would have the additional 8 iron in there as well. I've never added these up, let's just add them together quite straight now. 8, 15 and 9 is 24. Well, there you go, there's 24. So that's a 6 in some way. So, and if we added in the 8, that would be 32, which makes a 5. So I don't know. I'm looking around here when I'm trying to fit this into the 369 model. But just the fact that it's played on the 18-hole golf course, and you got the front 9 and the back 9, and I'll say a little bit more about golf once we've broken down snooker a little bit more. Okay, those of you who know the game of snooker will also know that this is not a very good representation of a snooker table. First up, we'll give it a green baize. Just to make it a little bit more pretty. But of course, there's no speckled black and red ball, but it is in fact a yellow ball. I just don't have a yellow whiteboard marker. there is no blue and red stripy ball, it's a brown ball. Then you got your green, then you got your blue, and then the red spotted ball is the pink ball, your black ball, and then you got your reds there. So, basics of the snooker game, how's it fit in with 369? Well, once again, like darts, we could also look at the form. It is played on a square, an oblong. Oblongs have got 4 angles of 90 degrees. So just like any square, it's 360 degrees when you count up the angles. Obviously, it's a square table, rectangular table, and there are 6 pockets. So that's the 6 from 369. And we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colour balls as well. 3 at the top, which are very distinctly separate in one way, and then 3 down through the middle axis. So a 3 and a 3 giving 6. And then the reds here in the triangle, then there's 15 reds in the triangle. So 1 plus 5 equals 6. That's another 6 there. We're seeing 6s and 3s everywhere. And of course, this is an equilateral triangle. So each angle of the triangle of the reds has 60 degrees. 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees to give you the 180. 1 plus 8 equals 9 of the equilateral triangle. Let's have a little look at the points. The yellow ball here is worth 2 points. The brown ball in the middle is worth 4 points, and the green ball on the outside is worth 3 points. So 2 plus 3 is 6, plus 3 is 9. And then same here, 5 for the blue ball, 6 for the pink ball, 7 for the red ball. 5 plus 6 is 11, plus 7 is 18. So altogether, that's 18 for these, 9 for these. 27 is the value of the colours. If you put all the colours, 2 plus 7 equals 9. The goal of a perfect frame of snooker is to clear the table, potting all 15 reds with 15 blacks. So when we pot a red and a black together, it's 8 points, and 8 times 15 equals 120. So 120, 1 plus 2 plus 0 is 3. So there's your 3. And then your 27 on top of that. So the maximum break in snooker is this 147. So also 147 adds up to 12 when we break it down. So that's a 3 as well. And also 147, people who are tuned into Powers of 9, is also one of the number groups. You got your 369, you got your 147, and you got your 258 number group. So this is fairly symbolic in that it actually marks out that number group of the 147. So that's the basic outline of the game of snooker. So let's try and break it down and look at it in a slightly more esoteric way. So there's obviously one ball that we haven't mentioned, and that's the white ball. And it's the same with golf. The cue ball, it's a cue ball in snooker, but the ball that we manipulate, the ball that we use with either the snooker cue or the golf club, is the white ball. So what I'm going to suggest in this is that the white ball is representative of consciousness. And as as a yogi, we have the power to direct our consciousness. That's the goal of the yogic path to a greater or lesser extent. It's also, again, Powers of 9. We know the symbolism of the equilateral triangle. This is a state of inner balance. So at the start of the frame, when everything's in its position and the triangle is there, I'm almost kind of visualizing this as the chakras. Up here you've got the trinity of third eye, bindu at the back, and crown at the top. This would just be transported from here, where that would be the crown point really, and that's the dome of the head. And that's why this is always when the white comes back onto the table, the consciousness is always projected from this dome here, from the D as they call it, and that's because this is where consciousness, when we're engaged consciously, this is the trinity of where our awareness is placed, where our awareness is coming from. Obviously we don't have all the chakras represented here. There's, if we counted the reds, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 layers of reds, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of balls if we count them on the same layer. So there you could say 5 and 4 to have 9 internal chakras. If we're not doing that, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we could count the reds as the 7th chakra if we were talking about a classic 7 chakra internal system. So at the same time, if this is the higher trinity of third eye, crown and bindu chakra, then 5 would have to be the heart at the center. So we're missing out the throat chakra. So it's not quite working in as an alignment with the chakras, but that's kind of what I'm seeing here when I'm looking at these. I'm looking at some sort of rough chakra representation. So at the beginning, when consciousness is placed in the D, we're ready to start the frame now. And at this point we're in balance. In terms of the powers of 9 process, I'd say at this point we're either about to break the first knot, or maybe we've even gone through the first knot. And then we cue off. And what happens when we cue off? We send the white ball consciousness, boom, into the red pack, and we break it up. And the reds fly all over the place. And of course, all down the sides here, we've got cushions. These are all cushions here, and so on. And so it's kind of, to some degree, fairly unpredictable as to where all these reds are going to go flying around the table to. So in terms of meditation practice, we do come into that space of equilibrium, equilateral triangle. We've got our awareness behind the third eye, or the trinity is engaged, or however you want to see that. And that balance can remain for a certain period of time. But then, at some point, if we send our consciousness back down through the chakra system, what we'll find is that there's still blockages, there's still disturbances there to be worked through. And most typically, if we look at these sort of emotional agitation, turmoil, unsettledness, then that's largely in this period, in this section of the body here, which is where we could look at the reds being so when we look down into that, then this is like breaking up the pack, and the reds sort of go everywhere. So when we see that, the goal is to keep our attention on the table, keep our attention sort of around all these feelings, emotions that may be stirred up around this part of the chakra column. And by paying attention, being present to that, this is the process of potting the reds. And then we're potting the reds, and the black, we're going to assume that the black does represent the base chakra. So because we're dealing with a lot of emotions and unsettled feelings and what have you, it's useful perhaps on a practice point of view to rest grounded in the base chakra. So as we do that, bit by bit by bit, we start to clear the table. And if we're successful to keep the white ball on the table, to clear away all the reds, that means we've stayed with our practice until all those feelings have resettled again. And then at that time, we go back up through the chakras. We're going to bring our attention would rise naturally to the higher centers. And then we need to go back through and we need to bring the energy down. Again, this is more powers of 9 kind of practice. So we need to go back from third eye where the energy would rise naturally, then direct our attention to the crown chakra, and then the energy would naturally moving down through Bindu and down through the lower chakras. So this is what happens here. Once we potted all the reds, we come back up and we pop the third eye, then take our attention to the crown, we pot that one, we pot the green at Bindu, and now the attention is going to come back down, so the white will come back down and pot the last remaining colours, also remembering that this is a 9 and this is a 9 as well. Also, we can also say that there are 15 reds and 6 whites, so that's also 21 balls on the table in total, if we don't count the white ball, obviously. And if we continue with that process and we do clear the table and we pot the last remaining ones, that means we've come into a state of inner balance. But then we've gone down through the chakras. We notice that there's still feelings and emotions that aren't perfectly settled, aren't perfectly centered. We work through those elements, and that takes us into another slightly deeper absorption or deeper state of presence. And then we're able to go back through the chakras again, but because the energy naturally comes up, we work our way down back once more through the chakras. And at that stage, once we clear the table, then we're in a awakened state. The baize is clear. The baize is the cloth of the snooker table. The baize is cleared for a moment. The mind is cleared for a moment, and we're truly present with what is. There is just consciousness that remains, the white ball. Of course, this is not a state that can be held indefinitely, so that's just end of frame 1, and then all of a sudden all the balls come back out onto the table, but the balls are formed in the setup position, which is still a position of balance. And if we're able to keep this going as an ongoing practice, then yes, we come back into balance at that stage, but we're more aware again of what's happening internally, chakras, emotions, blockages anywhere. And once again, it's time to resurvey the system, and that might mean going back into the pack, seeing what feelings are there now, what's in the house in this moment, what's in this area for our consciousness to pick up on, to investigate, to dissect, to be aware of. And once again, if we stay with the process, at some point we manage to clear the table again and move into that space of pure consciousness before coming back into a state of inner balance, but aware of also whatever material is there at any one point. So that's largely the global concept of how I see this as being a 3-6-9 game. In golf, it's kind of the same thing. We've got the ball, which is consciousness, and the idea is we send it down the fairway and we're going to put it into the hole on the green. So, and once again, the goal is to keep it on the fairway, and sometimes we get into the rough, but usually we can chip ourselves out of the rough with one of our higher lofted clubs and get back into play and keep consciousness moving until we get onto the green. And obviously around the green there's all the bunkers, so the closer you get to the green, which is the really fine smooth surface which is cut really fine grass, the closer we get to that, the more there's all these traps and tricks. So that's ego mind that can come as we're getting close to the goal and catchers, trappers into the sand traps or whatever it is. Sand traps, water traps, all that. And then ultimately putting the ball down into the hole. This is kind of like clearing the table in snooker. And similarly, like with snooker, once we've cleared the bays, then it's a new frame. We've worked through whatever emotional disturbance we've experienced there, and then we've gone back round through the chakras, come into that space of presence, and then the table gets reset again because we now move into a space of inner balance, present, and then we need to go again. So similarly, once we do get onto the green, pot the ball into the hole, that's the goal, and there'll also be a moment of clarity, presence, consciousness, whatever, and then we go on to the next hole, and so on and so forth. I mean, again, what would be interesting is also, I'm not sure how many frames it is before one wins a snooker tournament, for example. I know it'll change from different competitions, but maybe some of those, or maybe some of the older classic rules would also link into the 369 theory. But also what happens when we are playing these two games is that the goal is to stay on the bays, keep the ball on the table, the white ball, and that's the process of, I mean, that is the main thing in terms of, obviously in snooker you need to be potting, but keeping the ball on the table is also a key aspect, which is keeping our consciousness, keeping our practice, keeping our awareness. Same with golf, you need to keep the ball on the fairway. If you do stray, you go into the rough, and usually if you get into the rough you can take a higher lofted club and chip yourself out. It's a bit of a hindrance, but you can get back out, get onto the fairway, and get back on track to getting quickly and most efficiently towards the hole, towards the green where all the bunker traps are. And occasionally we have a even wilder shot and we start to go beyond the boundaries of our hole. So in this case we need to shout 4, 4. So, and 4, shouting of 4 is a warning to players on the rest of the golf course that there might be a wild stray ball flying in their direction because someone playing one of the other holes has done a really wild shot. So similarly in the game of snooker, if we do pot the white, we do lose consciousness, we go off the table, then we lose 4 points. 4 and 4. What's happening when the white ball is either going out the boundaries or off the table is that we're being engulfed with mentation, thinking mind, ego mind. We're lost in distraction. So when this happens, what is it that we need? We need to come back, and we need to come back often. In this situation we'll be lost in distraction, and we could be caught up with physical sensations that are throwing us off balance because we're not dealing with that very well. It could be emotional or it could be mental objects. And what we need to remember at this point is that we are more than the physical, emotional and mental bodies, that we are actually 4-dimensional beings living in 4-dimensional space. And we need to reconnect with the sense door world all around us. And it's that reconnection with the 4th dimension, if you like, the sensory door world, that bring us back into practice, that will bring us back into balance. So this is why it's 4. The 4's the reminder that we need to reconnect with that which is beyond the internal world alone. And then we cycle through these processes. We go from one hole to the next. We go from one frame to the next, staying with practice. So that's where I think the inspiration comes from some of these games. And we have to see. I mean, maybe it's all coincidence. Maybe I'm interpreting things in the way that is adapted to the way I see things, but it's something to look into, something to be aware of, and food for thought again. So that was the Aristocratic Games. So stay out the rough, keep the ball on the table, and thanks for watching the video. Thank you. So there was one little bit that I left out in the last video on snooker that I feel compelled to just throw in there, throw back into the mix. So if we do a 147, or even just completely clear the table in one go, in one visit, then what happens on that? So we need to pot the first 15 reds. We need to pot the equilateral triangle. So there's 15 reds that we're going to pot. So we'll just do the numerology there, which is 1 plus 5, which equals 6. And then every time you pot a red, you pot a colour. If it's a maximum, it's going to be a black. So we'll talk about the maximum anyway. So, and since I've got a black, we'll use blacks. So 15 blacks, but it could be other colours. So 1 plus 5 also equals 6. And then when we've cleared all the reds and we've potted a colour with each red, then what we're left with is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coloured balls. So once again, so six colours. So, and 6 numerologically reduces to a 6. So what we've got there, if we total that, we get 36. 5 plus 5 plus 6 equals 16. 6 down, 1 to carry, 1, 2, 3. And over there we get 18 on that reduction. Obviously these are both 9s, and this gives you the classic 6, 6, 6. The mark of the awakened mind, not the devil himself. That's something that comes out in the Powers of 9 book. So I just wanted to squeeze that into this video as extra info. Thank you.